Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself?
All right, J.D. Vance is about to completely destroy the woke media's attempt to try to downplay the crime happening in some of the places in America right now. We're going to replay the full clip so you can get full context of what's happening. Watch how the host tries to cover up what's happening under the Biden-Kamala administration.
I understand what you're saying, that some people left behind, but he's making these statements that the mayor is flat out disputing.
Well, Martha, you just said the mayor said they were exaggerated.
Grossly
exaggerated. That means there's got to be some element of truth here. And of course, President Trump was actually in Aurora, Colorado, talking to people on the ground. And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
Okay, let's just end that with they did not invade or take over the city, as Donald Trump said. I want to move on to
just a few apartment complexes, no big deal.
The media constantly covers up for the left, especially when it comes to the border crisis. If you were to rely on mainstream media outlets, you'd barely know it's happening. Why? Because they're doing everything they can to protect the Democratic Party from the fallout of their failed border policies. When Donald Trump was in office, every single move he made on immigration was scrutinized, criticized, and blown up in the media. But now that Joe Biden is in charge, crickets. The coverage is either minimal or spins the crisis as some kind of bureaucratic challenge, rather than the result of weak border policies that are encouraging illegal immigration. The media won't admit that Biden's rollback of Trump-era policies is what sparked this crisis in the first place. Meanwhile, Trump is getting endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council.
America, I have a message for you. If we allow Border Czar Harris to win this election, every city, every community in this great country is going to go to hell. The untold millions of people, unvetted, who she has allowed into this country that are committing murders, rapes, robberies, burglaries, and every other crime will continue to put our country in peril. Only one man can fix that. That is Donald J. Trump. He has always stood with the men and women who protect this border, who put their lives on the line for the country. A man who knows about putting his life on the line for what is right. This November, we have a choice to make. Continue the chaos, allow the criminal cartels to control the border, to allow drugs and fentanyl across our country, or put an end to it once and for all. On behalf of the 16,000 men and women represented by the National Border Patrol Council, we strongly support and endorse Donald J. Trump for President of the United States.
Of course, mainstream media is not even mentioning this huge endorsement for an issue that is a huge topic for this election. This should be getting way more attention. Trump also mentioned what he would do for Border Patrol to help it protect this country even more.
And Libby, this is a state the former president narrowly lost in 2020. What was his message tonight?
Well, the big takeaway from this was a new endorsement for Trump from the National Border Patrol Union here. They represent border agents across the U.S., not just here in Arizona. But of course, here in Arizona, this was no coincidence that this was announced here tonight. Now, Trump also announced more details for his plan on how he's going to hire and retain those Border Patrol agents if he were elected. Part of that plan, he would hire 10,000 new Border Patrol agents, give them a 10% raise. That would, of course, have to be approved by Congress, and then a $10,000 retention and signing bonus for those Border Patrol agents. Now, right now, there are less than 20,000 Border Patrol agents in the U.S., so that increase of 10,000, of course, is quite the increase.
Meanwhile, Kamala Harris' campaign is in shambles, and it's increasingly getting hard for the media to cover up her holes. She's had 3 months to tell the American people why she differs from Joe Biden, and, well, she still hasn't done it.
I mean, the reality is that for the first time in 32 years in this poll, it shows that Republicans are beating Democrats straight up. When you ask people a generic ballot in 32 years, it shows that Donald Trump's doing better with black voters, Hispanic voters, off the charts. But what the most important thing is, what happened last week is that what was working with female voters with Kamala Harris was that there was some feeling of joy in the air. Well, that joy is gone. She had a terrible week. She picked a pointless fight with Ron DeSantis. She was losing in the Sun Belt, and she tried to recover by going on The View, which a lot of women watch. She went on The View. You talked about it earlier. And she wanted to clarify the two most important issues that are facing these two candidates, the economy and immigration. And she bombed like Rory at the U.S. Open, and she went out there and said there was nothing she would do that would be different than Joe Biden. And she created a campaign commercial for Donald Trump. And so she's trying to recover. There is no joy in the air. And everybody knows it. And it's obvious that there is a leak in the balloon here in the Kamala Harris campaign.